Last time out I was talking about the permaculture principle of stacking and using some examples in our conservatory, including how we're stacking in space by adding that shelving and giving us some extra use of that vertical height, but also stacking in time and how we're bringing on plants in modules and pots and planting them out when space becomes available. So I just want to take a bit of time to guide you around the vegetable garden. It's the middle of April and we're very much in transition from things that have been overwintering and going into spring, and I'm going to show you some of the plants we grow through the winter and how we manage that process. So there's various things that you can perhaps recognise, maybe some that you don't. So these tall alliums here, these are garlics. This one is called early white, I think, or something like that. So I do have a label for them somewhere here. And then there's another variety here. The challenge we've had with these before, with garlics before, is that we get rust here, which is a disease that some alliums get. And once the plants get rust, which is this, it's named after the orange fungus that looks quite rusty, and it stops the leaves photosynthesizing, and then the energy of the plant doesn't go into making the bulb. So this is the first time in 2 or 3 years we've tried growing garlic, because we had quite bad rust before. And we got garlics, but they were pretty small and not that great really. So this is our first attempt in a few years of doing it. So far they look good. The challenge we've had with all of these beds is, well, these two at this end we made when we arrived. The other two were already here, but very heavy on clay. And we're gradually, over every season, building up the life in the soil and the organic matter and so on. And it's key, the life in the soil is key to growing things, because if you've got no life, there's no way for the plant to farm the creatures in the soil that give the nutrients. And so, but gradually over the years we've noticed that, you know, been here 5 years now, we've noticed that plants get that bit better every year. And so one of our strategies in these beds is to put down, well, to keep the soil covered. And you can do that in 2 ways, with a sort of compost mulch, which we do, but also across the winter months, particularly when we've got rain, heavy rain. We're in Cornwall, we get quite a lot of rain. It's important for us to protect the soil also with plants, and I'm quite happy for a certain number of plants, particular species, to grow through the winter and cover the beds, to the extent where we've got way more of these plants than we would ever need to eat. And of course in the winter months many plants are in that resting phase. The alliums are quite happy to grow, particularly as we go into spring, but a lot of plants just sort of sit waiting to flower and seed in the spring, and this is what we've got going on in front of us. So this plant is called wintercress, and that's really nice. There are certain types of cress that are quite difficult to grow, and things like watercress is very good for you, but and we're able to grow that here, but because of a system we have set up. But wintercress is a really nice, easy, self-seeding. We bought it once, we sowed it, and every year I just let some of it flower, go to seed. That's going to spread its seed all across the beds, and I just weed out the excess that we don't need at the point where I want to plant something in, and then I create space. And it's a plant that's easy to uproot. So the key thing about putting plants, allowing plants to self-seed, is that they're easy to weed out, because some plants of course put down a deep taproot and they get quite difficult. So another one that we've got in here, which you can probably see, I'll give you a close-up, is called corn salad, and that grows very nicely in sort of bunches. It's flowering at the moment. We've got one variety which has bigger leaves than others, but again I just let it self-seed through the winter months, self-seed and then grow through the winter months, covering the beds. It's a really good coverage. What else we got in here? This is golden frills, I think, and again it's a great plant to have in salads over the winter, and so we're just allowing that to flower and seed. I'm quite happy to do that. And another one we've got in here which is this one, which is clay. Sometimes people call this Claytonia or pink purslane. As you can see, this is an area that's just self-seeded, it's just doing its thing. There's one at the front here, just down here, which is currently in flower, as you can see. And these leaves are really nice in salad. We've got some quite large leaves there, beetrooty flavoured, lovely flowers. And so there's a selection of things in here. These are all plants, as I say, that I just let seed and let them do what they want, and then I weed them out when I want to create some space. And this bed, in a few weeks' time, because we're middle of April, I'm going to be planting out with courgettes. So I'm just letting these do their thing until then, and they'll come out, and then the courgettes will go in. Another of the plants that we've been overwintering is this one. This is buckthorn plantain. It has a much tastier leaf, a softer leaf, and is grown as a winter salad. We grew it for the first time this year and we're really impressed, and it also looks beautiful. Obviously this is going to seed, and again I'm kind of happy for one or two of these plants to go to seed. I don't want them everywhere because that's more work in terms of weeding, but I'm quite happy for this to do its thing, seed perhaps in a different area from the other plants. Again, more Claytonia, pink purslane here. This is the corn salad, and so this area here again is just the remains of what we've been growing over the winter months. We're still picking this to some degree, and but at the same time we're transitioning into the spring. So over here we have our onions, sets that we planted in the spring. On this side we've not intercropped that with anything yet. In fact, I haven't really decided what to put in there. Over here we've got onions, different varieties, but here we've interplanted with lettuce that we grew in modules. So this is the stacking in time bit. So we've been growing these on undercover, hardening them off, and then planting them out in rows, along with multi-sown beetroot, so you can put several seeds of beetroot in together. The thing to be aware of with beetroot is that what looks like one seed can be a cluster of seeds. So you might put in 1 or 2 seeds and then get 4 plants. But the idea with multi-sowing is that with certain plants you can do this, that particularly the root plants, the alliums, they'll push apart from each other and you just harvest the largest, keep the others in, and that gives you a sort of stacks in a lot more crops in the space that you have. Potato there from last year, probably take that out, and more lettuce at the back there. And again at the back here we've got, you can see the size that some of these leaves can get to here, yeah, a really good crop to have in. Over in the older beds, the ones that were here when we first arrived, and we've got a lot of last year's beet still in here, which I've been interplanting with Mitsuna, which has been grown in modules in the conservatory this spring, so that as this crop goes over, then this will take over. Again, we've got golden frills here, lots of last year. This over here is elephant garlic, which we were gifted by some friends when I went to teach in the Isle of Wight, and that's just doing amazingly well. And you'll see some more of it behind here. It looks similar to leeks, but is slightly different, a bit paler, certainly larger. We'll get to that in a moment. Well, here we are. So over here we've got leeks from last year, some of which are starting to throw scapes, which is where it wants to flower, and that's a weather thing. So essentially with leeks you just need to grow them as much as possible, because there's a point at which they'll stop growing and they'll start flowering. But you can eat the scapes, they're very nice. And what else have we got behind here? Some carrots, the remains of carrots that are interplanted here. Carrots do very well between alliums. Apparently onions and carrots repel each other's pests. They always seem to work well enough, and of course carrots are quite tall plants, so are the alliums. And yes, at the back here we've got some shallots coming on. Again, they were planted early spring. And then over here, yes, so I've been planting some lettuces here. These have gone in. The thing with lettuces, it's really easy to oversow because the seeds are really small. I ended up pricking out from trays about 150 plants, put them in, and as things stand, there's only 2 of us here to be eating them, so hopefully when the course comes around in June we'll be eating a lot of lettuce. But I'm also sowing on. I've just recently, the last day or two, sown some more lettuces, because when these go over and go to flower, and then again you see they become useless, so you have to successionally sow. Here we've got some radish. So these are black Spanish round radishes, so rather big chunky things. We're growing these primarily for, well, the flowers are very lovely, but the pods. So radishes make pods, and so this is a good vertical plant so that we can grow low plants beneath and in between. And the pods, the crispy green pods, are really, really nice. You can pickle them apparently, but we just eat them fresh. And you get the radish taste without having to eat the whole radish. And behind we've got some broad beans, which I've just put in, again brought on this spring. In between we have some radishes. In fact, I can see the little radish seedlings coming up here. Underneath the planks we've got carrots, so they're a longer term crop. And the plank is just to keep the soil moist, which has not really been a problem of late because it's rained a lot the last few days. And then I've got some beetroot in over here at the back. So what we're doing is we're stacking in last year's, putting this year's in between last year's, and as last year's come out, that creates the space for this year's. And that's one of the benefits of having limited space, because you learn to get creative.